Our next speaker is Jay Tanner from Grouse Creek, Utah. His family owns Della ranches, and he's one of our cooperators on one of our current beaver projects. Jay?
Thank you, Eric. Talk right into that. I'll do my best. I should tell you right off the start that back in the day, a lot of days ago, as an undergraduate at Utah State, they asked me to do a video for the livestock judging team. And they used that video for years. I was the bad example, so it always makes me nervous when when there's a video camera going on, because I think I'll probably come up many times to come. And lastly, I'd last say that I've reminded all day today about the popular TV show Big Bang Theory, the story of a bunch of scientists. Diane wouldn't let me say nerds or geeks, and one beautiful woman that doesn't seem to have the same IQ as the rest, who spends most of her time with kind of a glazed eye look, and that's kind of the way I am today too. So I understand her feelings without being hot. Lastly, I'd say Grouse Creek is the community where I'm from. It was interesting that they named the town after a threatened bird and a drying creek. It tells you a lot about Grouse Creek. I'll quickly tell you a little bit about our ranch. We're cow-calf producers. The ranch goes from Wendover, Utah, if you're familiar with that, about 90 miles almost to the Idaho border. And the ranch is made up of public lands, BLM lands, state school trust lands, private lands, and lands that we lease from other private landowners. And we have property in a livestock association that we're members of, and we own a grazing easement on about 55 sections of property as well. And we have wildlife, everything from bighorn sheep, moose and elk, down to a boreal toad, which is only found in Utah in our area. So I was asked today to talk a little bit about why a rancher would be interested in reintroducing beaver on their ranch and on the streams in their area. In 2008, I was at a meeting something like this. I don't remember exactly what it was, but at lunchtime, I was seated with some people I knew and with Sylvia Gillen, who was the state NRCS conservationist. And of course, of the conversation, I think I was probably speaking too much to the people I knew, and complaining a little bit about some of the conservation issues that we had in our area. And among other things, mentioned that we had a significant amount of juniper, that in our area we didn't have any water storage facilities, and so most of the water from snowpack would melt in April and May. We have irrigate our meadows and our flood irrigated fields. The water's pretty well gone normally, even on a good year, by the 1st of July, and on a year like this with no snowpack, it's almost not there hardly at all. And so I had a list of various things, and right at that time the sage grouse issue was just starting to warm up real good, and we discussed that as well. And I never thought anything more of it. And a month or so later, Sylvia called me and said, Jay, I've been talking with Senator Bennett, and he has agreed to earmark $200,000 to develop a CRMP plan in your watershed if you're interested in pursuing that. Well, sometimes it comes to a place of where you've either got to put up or shut up. And so after a series of kind of starts and stops, we developed and worked on a CRM plan in western Box Elder County that has been very successful and has been, I think, very beneficial for our area. And 3 of the 6 areas that we identified were water issues, junipers, and wildlife, specifically sage grouse and mule deer, but any other wildlife that we could help or work with. And so when the sage grouse initiative got really warmed up and got going in about 2010, myself and some of my neighbors in western Box Elder County jumped right in with encouragement from our district conservationist to start doing juniper work. And for a large period of the SGI experience, I don't know that it's still true, western Box Elder County had done more juniper work than all of the rest of the country combined. And it's had a tremendous impact on the sage grouse habitat and on the domestic habitat for wildlife in our area. And so I hope I'm punching the right button there. So as we approach some of the challenges that we looked at, the photo on your right shows, maybe I can find this, whoops. Where's the green button, please? Okay, thanks. Shows what a lot of our area looked like with junipers coming right down to the creek bottom. If you'll notice, this creek has willows and stuff in it, but we've got junipers right to the edge of the creek. And as we go through this slide, these various slides, you're going to see this area again after we've removed the junipers from the area. But as we started doing this work in the area with junipers, then I started to look more closely at some of these types of streams where we have a fairly narrow stream bank that's incised, the water's down a little deep. We've dropped, and we've heard a lot today about dropping the groundwater level, but we have fairly large, tall, in some places, sagebrush taller than me, right up to the water bank there. And so I, again, was complaining a little bit to Eric Thacker about this and had been following some of the beaver work that's been going on. And so Eric said, well, you know, if you're really interested, I've got a guy that I'd like to take you to talk to. Well, it's again one of those put up or shut up moments. And so he invited us to come down to Utah State University and to meet with Joe Wheaton and Nick and their team there. And so Diane and I went and met there. And I'm sure that Eric had warned Joe a little bit about what he was getting into, but when we got there, Joe pulled up on the computer and showed me more about my streams than I knew about, and told me, you know, that he would be very interested in working with us. Well, one of the reasons that I'm interested in beaver work is I would like to extend the irrigation system on my farm and ranch. Now, someone says, well, you can ask, how are the beaver ponds and work going to do that? And I understand well enough that I'm not going to maybe be able to irrigate really well through the full season. But if I can buy 2 weeks in late June or in July, we'll have a significant impact on my ranching operation. That'll mean a big difference to the meadows and those areas that we flood irrigate. So that was important. But as we started to make our plan, we thought, well, let's do some studies on what's happening with those streams and measure what's happening and be able to some degree, prove what's happening. And so we've done some water measurements, and Eric is working on doing mesic measurements on the areas. So we're looking at the habitat on the areas along the streams, and so all of those things we are trying to work together. Well, through these efforts, we found that the sage grouse are picking up a bunch in the area and are improving a lot. Shows just an example of one area that's been treated in western Box Elder County and an area yet is probably done by now. This is on my ranch, and this area that we're looking at, right in this area, the picture I told you, warned you earlier, look at, I would have been sitting up on the hill here shooting the picture down in here, and so we have removed the juniper in all this area back in these here. And in fact, so these areas all through this looked like this as far as junipers. And now the junipers have been railed and burned, and we've got a good stand of perennial grasses and forbs coming in there. And so, again, as you look at this, we have along some of most of those areas, we have a pretty good stand of willows, and in some areas, some quaking aspens. And so, I thought, I'm a little naive, I thought all I'd have to do is go to the DWR and say, you've got some problem beavers somewhere, let's bring a few out and drop them in the stream here and let them work. It hasn't turned out to be that easy, but Joe and his team have done a significant amount of work preparing these streams with BDAs. We've learned what they are today, and to prepare for having beaver. And we've thought we were going to have some beaver in the next every year for a while, but we're pretty sure we're going to get some beaver in the area. And I should tell you that to my knowledge, there's not one beaver in the Grouse Creek watershed at this point in time. And I remember as a young man, as an adult, we still had beavers, and we did not aggressively trap. You know, I don't know why we lost them, other than maybe the numbers just got down, whether we got a virus or what happened, we lost birds. So we hope to get them back. I should thank the partnerships that we've involved in. I'm a big believer in collaboration. And so we have the state of Utah has two outstanding programs to help with conservation. One is the Watershed Restoration Initiative, and the other is the Grazing Improvement Program, who then also work with the SGI funding through NRCS. We've worked with the DWR, with Utah State University, and with Anna Branch Solutions, which is a group of people that Joe has put together to. They are busy little beavers, those people, they do a lot of work, and they've done the majority of the work in the area for us. We're working at this time on these three areas, and they're all private property except for a small piece of school trust lands right in this area right there. And so at this point in time, we're not dealing with much with public lands issues and those kind of things, but and most of the these areas are do not go onto public land, except for Kimball Creek has some public land as well, and maybe the beaver will eventually move there. I'm sorry, you saw in Joe's presentation, this is a bunch of the work that his team has done, and I'm appreciative of all the work that they've done. They've identified areas for differing type of BDAs and where we will introduce the beaver when we get them there, and they have done tremendous work. This is just an example of during a higher flow in the spring, what was some of the areas where we're working and will continue to work. And again, you'll see that along the stream banks, there were junipers and really tall sagebrush. Again, you've seen this here, but some of the BDA work that's being done in the area. You know, when they started this, they warned me that maybe they were trying to encourage this narrow stream to wash out the sides, to widen the bank, and to fill that type of stuff in. So initially, as I've taken my neighbors, as they've ridden by that, they've said, boy, you're making one hell of a mess here. And to some degree, I have to agree with them. But I hope that we're going to progress and go on from there. Again, an example, as the stream widens out, we go and hopefully there. An interesting thing to me about this particular stretch is that the original stream bank went right down through over here, and for some reason it changed, and so it's flowing in an area where the stream didn't go. And so if you look over here, you'll see some willows and those types of things. So I hope as we get working with this, that this whole area will fill in with the native meadow, mesic areas, and with willows as well. Again, examples where we will look to do some work. Again, this whole area, prior to the 2010 SGI work, this was all stage 2 and 3 juniper area, and so it's quite a significant area. You see there's plenty of sagebrush coming back in the area, and as you go down through, there's quite a few willows, but there are some stretches where there aren't willows. We hope that we can help that along as we go. Examples of BDAs that Scott and his team are working on in the area. Again, same area where they've worked to keep them in place, and their plan, someday you'll see a beaver there, I hope in the very near future. So back to this same area, this first photo that I showed you from up on the hill, this was all covered in junipers, and currently there's willows along here, and then quakies back up through the stream, back up in willows, quakies. It's my hope that in my lifetime I'll be able to take my grandchildren up into these areas and say, see that fish? And maybe even better someday, see them catch a fish and release it back into some beaver ponds here along this stretch. But I also hope to see the mesic areas further out along here. And why will that help me? It'll help my grazing operation, and it'll help sage grouse. It's going to help all the wildlife that like to have a drink. That's going to help them out. And the fellow that spoke just before me spoke about frogs. We have boreal toads that are the only that type of toads in Utah. And so a lot of those areas will be benefited with sage or with beaver ponds and those kind of things. So lastly, I wanted to tell you that there's been some interesting things that we've been working on. You never know what you might find when you're working in these streams. When you're working on them, what you might find in the stream. And we had Eric there, and he, on a cold day last spring, he proved to us that he couldn't walk on water. So it's hard to tell from that, but Eric was wet above his waist. And so I just wanted to remind him of the fun times we've had together. And with that, I just got a minute. I'll tell you very quickly. We're in the Reno area. Pyramid Lake's not far from here. There historically, Lahontan trout were native to Pyramid Lake, and they grew 40 to 50 pounds. That's the second largest trout in the world. In the 1940s, that trout went extinct for various reasons. I haven't got time to talk about that. And in the late 1990s, a fish biologist, looking at 2 small streams on public land but in the area of my ranch, looking for Bonneville cutthroat trout, found some trout that he didn't recognize. Finally, someone told him, so, well, they're probably Lahontan cutthroat trout. And in those little streams, they only grow about 4, 5, 6 inches long. Through a series of experiments, mainly from someone building a pond on the stream, the fish that lived in those ponds grew a little bit bigger. And so that helped, maybe got people a little bit more interested. And ultimately, they took a DNA sample of the fish and of the extinct Lahontan cutthroat trout from Pyramid Lake. Turned out that it was an exact match. And today, in Pyramid Lake, there are fish that are over 30 pounds. I hope that I live to see the day when the fish that came from Pilot Mountain in Utah, Nevada state fish, that we will set a new record for fish in Pyramid Lake. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.